Hello, hello, hello out there. This is the Master Communicator, and I am Sharon C. Jenkins, and you are listening to Author Central Station, and we are on AfroVibesRadio.com worldwide. And I did say AfroVibesRadio.com worldwide. Author Central Station is the place where you go when you want to shout out your message, your literary message to the world. And you know what? That's what we do every week with an author from all over the world. Sometimes they call in, sometimes they come in, and today we have the privilege of having two very distinguished guests, Dr. Jacqueline Cobbin and Miss Sharice Johnson.
Glad to be here.
Glad to be here for sure.
Yes, I'm going to have my girls with me. Now, Sharice is my wingman today.
Yes, first time.
She
And hope
has-
it won't be the last time.
Oh, it won't, She has some questions that she wants to ask Dr. Cobbin in the second half about being an educator in this social media world and how parents should posture themselves. But in this first half, we're going to talk to the author, Dr. Jackie Cobbin, and she has written a book, and the book is called According to His Purpose. And I just want to share a little bit with you about this fabulous lady. For those of you who are not Houston geographically, but you are actually in another portion of the country or the world, Dr. Jacqueline Horton Cobbin has a unique way of reaching her audience by coining phrases called Cobbinisms.
Cobbinism.
Woo! I
Yes.
love Cobbinisms. Now, these phrases are: you are always on stage, treat people as you want to be treated, there is no substitute for documentation, and with spiritual and intellectual knowledge, you are a powerful individual. This is the basis by which she has thrived as a multi-dimensional entrepreneur, leader, professional educator, gifted communicator, and philanthropist. And we're going to ask her a little bit about that. And she is nationally recognized as a presenter and motivational speaker, and she is known as one of the most effective and results-oriented consultants in America. She is the CEO of Cobbin and Associates LLC, and she serves as an educational consultant, technical writer, and editor for nonprofit and profit organizations, educational institutions, as well as for church leaders for over 10 years.
Wow.
Welcome, Dr. Cobbin.
Thank you very much.
Yes, we are so glad to have you today.
Oh, Sharon, I'm excited about being here. I really am. Every time I hear someone read something about me, particularly as you did a moment ago, it humbles me even more so.
Wow.
God has allowed me to remain on this earth and do the kinds of things that He has orchestrated me to do.
Wow,
And
wow.
so, it's an honor to be here. And as you know me well. I've got lots to say. And hopefully we can get most of it in.
Well, we'll do our best.
Yes,
We will do our
exactly,
best.
exactly.
Now, the beautiful thing that I want to talk to you about is this book, According to His Purpose.
Yes.
Why did you write this book?
Well, I wrote this book mainly because it was a request of my husband that you have so much in you, Jackie, that you need to bring it to pass in a book. So based on his death 5 years ago, I decided that I would go on and finish what I started. Much of it was already on the shelf. So there was a need for people to have an understanding, as I eventually did, how powerful it is to live a life on purpose. We hear it all the time, but to make sure that that's something that we should daily seek after in terms of living a life and doing what's necessary according to His purpose, not ours for the day. So I wrote it so that there would be documentation. There's no substitute for it.
No
So,
substitute.
No substitute for it. And so you can hear my voice today, but this book will remain, whether I live longer or not. It will be here as documentation of what God wanted to come forth for his people.
So let's talk a little bit about the genesis of the book. What, from what I understand, you had a catastrophe happen, and it was the genesis that pushed you even further into, as we say here in Texas, getting her done. So tell our audience about that story, please.
Sure. That was one of many catastrophes as I think about my life over the span of number of years. But this particular incident occurred maybe 2 years after my husband passed away. I was driving home from church, having sang in the choir that Sunday and really praised God for blessings flow. So did that, got in my vehicle and was traveling down the street here in Houston and passed out.
Wow.
Passed out and I crossed 6 lanes, 3 in the lanes that I was driving, and then the ones coming towards me, 3 of those lanes. And so I crossed those lanes and ended up in a head-on collision with not 1 vehicle, but 2.
Oh,
And so
wow.
my life was spared. I suffered multiple injuries, bleeding in the brain, and fractures in my face. The doctor said that I would need plastic surgery and would not be able to see out of my right eye. Fractures in my chest. I broke my writing hand, my pen hand, my foot, and then I broke my shoulder, so I have a pin rod in my shoulder now. So that was a turning moment for me in terms of what I knew I needed to get done. When you wake up from something like that and you realize that life can slip away from you just that quickly, then the clarion call was on my life to do what I needed to get done. The Lord knew I loved to write, and I was writing for everybody else, and technical writing and editing and all of that for everyone else. And he allowed me to lay in the hospital bed, in the hospital bed in ICU. And there's a chapter in the book, if I can be graphic about it.
Oh, of course.
There's a chapter in the book that's called P in My Pain, P-E-E, perseverance, expectation, and exaltation. So the P in my pain came while I was lying there in the bed and was unable to move or get up to use the restroom. And I'm pushing the buttons for the nurses to come in ICU, and no one came. And so I urinated on myself. And I'm there lying there singing, Lord, what, crying, look how I am. You know what I mean? I'm your child, and here I am in this most horrible position. And so he spoke to me and said, P in your pain. P, perseverance, exaltation, and expectation. So that was the impotence of getting this done, because that particular chapter was already written in my head. So as you can see, so many years later, and there are incidents that occurred since then, I won't go into all of that, but I am healthy and whole.
Yes.
And I am more about the business of Jesus Christ than ever before. And I really and truly believe that people need to understand that life is a vapor, and we have an obligation to our Creator to live it for His purpose, not for ours, because our responsibility is to bring others to Christ, not to just live, for ourselves and all of that, but to make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to bring others to Christ, because heaven is a big place.
It sure
and all
is.
of us want to get there, and there's no segregation when we get there. And
Amen.
He's going to look back and say, what did you do, Jackie, to make this possible for us? Not what you got out of it, but what did you do? So that's the impotence of the book. You were there when it all came to pass.
Oh, I was doing my literary midwife thing
You
then.
sure were. You birthed it out. You put a microphone in my face and said, answer these questions, my sister, just as I'm doing today.
Deja vu.
Yes, indeed. You made it happen for me.
Well.
Even prior to the book, there were other pieces that were out there. I did graduation ceremonies, messages of graduations and women's events and different kinds of venue. And there was one piece that said, how will you live your life when no one else is watching? You know, so those things are out there. What happens when you're a praying mother? You know, the power of prayer, all of those kinds of things. But when you have a life-threatening moment in time, then all of that just sort of lines itself up to what you're about. And I don't think I'm doing anything any more unusual than anyone else. I just have a passion for it at this point. And God is using me as we move forward. So,
Mightily.
For His glory. Now.
Yes.
Keep that in mind. It's
Yes.
all for His glory.
Yes. So the premise is that we all have a purpose.
Yes, we all have a purpose.
So we're talking to a young audience.
Yes.
How would you encourage them, exhort them to embrace whatever their purpose is, or to even seek it?
Yes.
Because so many people are emulating other people,
Sure.
athletes,
Sure.
movie stars,
Sure.
entertainers.
Yes.
They're emulating them, but they don't really know who they are. Can you speak on that?
Sure, I can. The young folks are, you know, they're visual learners. You're an educator, you know that. They're either going to see it or they're going to hear it, auditory learners. So they, you know, the media, we're going to get into that, how powerful TV and radio and all of those kinds of things have an impact on our youngsters. And I'm not talking just the young,
Right,
but I'm
right.
talking about, you know, all
Young
of the-
adults.
Young adults,
Mhm.
exactly. I worked with a young lady this morning, I won't share all of her story, but I went to, when I finished with her, I said, tell me 3 things about you. She could describe everybody else and everything else, but when I talked about her, tears came down because it was very hard for her to describe herself. For so many young kids, it's hard for them to describe themselves. They see themselves in others. That's why it's so important for us as women of God to emulate Him and to be all that we can be in their sight. So when young kids look at me and said, they did that years ago, lady, you must be rich. And I'm like, I don't have any more than any other classroom teacher out here. But I had a little mother who's a seamstress who taught me this fashion thing. So I know, just as the gentleman said, when I walk into the room, the first impression is what they see. So just the same as for our youngsters, when they turn on the TV and the radio, it's what they see and what they hear.
Right.
So we have to be that example for them. And that's, you know, they're drawn to that. They're drawn to you know, things that are famous and flashy. You know, it looks good, But you know, the devil uses all of those kinds of things as enticements too. So why can't the body of Christ, the women of God, exude what He wants to be portrayed in our dress,
Yes, I
in
love
our
it.
speak,
Yes.
you know, in our demeanor,
Yes.
in the way we treat one another,
Oh,
especially
good.
women treating women,
Yes.
the way we talk to our young girls. You know, we've all been there. How can we crucify or justify what they're doing or not doing when we were 20 once upon a time too, and 19, and don't go down to the 13
Don't go too far down, right?
I'm laughing because I make a conscious effort now when I think I'm gonna judge somebody because of their age.
Man.
I do an immediate flashback to when I was that age
Yes.
and put my mind back in that place,
Yes.
and I go, and just keep going.
That's right.
Because I remember me.
Yes, right.
Yeah, I
That's right.
remember, I remember me.
Yeah.
So the wonderful thing about this discussion is the fact that I'm just gaining so much, and I know
This
Sharice
is a great
is just,
discussion. Yes, I am absorbing everything. and just-
Sharice is having a great time. But we've got to take a little break,
Okay.
and we'll be back, listening audience. This is Sharon C. Jenkins, and I have Dr. Jackie Cobbin in the house, and the beautiful
Glad to be
Sharice
here.
Johnson.
And you're
And-
beautiful too. Let
Oh,
me add
thank
that
you.
in. Wearing that lipstick.
Oh, thank you, thank
And
you.
the flower.
the beauty of all of this, we have to leave it with you for a second and come back because we need to take a break. AfroVibesRadio.com, Author Central Station. We'll be right back. Hello, hello, hello there. This is Sharon C. Jenkins, the Master Communicator, and you are listening to Author Central Station on AfroVibesRadio.com worldwide. We are in 177 countries. And you know what? There are students all over the world and parents who are all over the world who need to know what to do with this social media thing.
Yes, they do.
I mean, you know, we've got 5 generations from the boomers on down. And boomers, when you ask them about social media, they might know how to say hi on Facebook, but they don't know a whole bunch. But you ask their 15-year-old great-grandchild, and they can tell you everything.
Exactly.
So Sharice is here today to talk a little bit, to ask Dr. Cobbin some questions
Right.
about children and their parents and social media. And the reason why Sharice Johnson is an expert is simply because she's about to birth her
Yes.
book baby next week. Next week.
Congratulations, my sister.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations, yes.
A guide to social media era parenting. So she is an expert, a
Yes.
parent's expert.
Yes.
But not only is she an expert as a parent, because you know she got 4 boys.
Really?
Yes, 4
4
sons.
boys.
Wonderful.
She's an educator, entrepreneur, author, and a community advocate. So Sharice, ask your questions. We got an expert in the
Yeah,
house.
I'm so glad to be here and so glad to have this opportunity with you, Dr. Cobbin. And thank you so much, Sharon, for inviting me here to be your co-pilot today. Actually, Dr. Cobbin, my first question is actually, how do you compare parenting in the digital age, that's just with the introduction of computers and everything of that sort, with parenting in the social media era? How would you compare the two?
I would compare the digital age to what we're faced with now in terms of media, social media. It's like to the X power,
Mhm.
X being almost infinite because we don't know how far it expands.
Coming from that particular era to now, as an educator, I know that we have a responsibility to learn first all that we can about this age, because this is the age that our children are living in. And it's most important for us to have the information so that we're able to parent in the right way all across this world as it relates to social media.
Definitely, definitely. And speaking of that, just speaking of parenting, dealing with social media, why do you think a lot of parents, for some reason, think that social media is a fad? Kind of like wearing camera pants back in the day, or doing anything. Well, even further back, wearing bell bottoms. So
Platform
some
shoes.
parents, platform shoes, which that was not my era. I was born around that time.
It was
A lot
not.
of parents think that it's a fad, like it's going to go out of style for some reason, and I'm not sure why. I know that teachers get it because they have to deal with students and they see it every day and they are using it every day. But for some reason, some parents think it's a fad and they're not actually engaging and learning more about it and actually, getting more involved. Why do you think that's the case?
Well, I want to go back to the way that you characterize your question. A lot of parents, some parents, many parents, and thinking about this, what we're doing today in terms of the media across the world, I would hope and believe that we have more parents involved in the education of social media for themselves than ever before.
Yes.
Because they see the impact. If they're anywhere on TV, radio, Facebook, whatever, they know and they see what is going on with our children and how important it is for us to stay abreast with that. But I will be able to say to you that we do have a concern, a major concern for parents who are not interested in the social media phenomenon. First of all, not interested, and then not being educated, because we tend to go where our interest is. And so we need for them to be interested in that particular piece because it has an impact on their children. And so it's important for them to do that. And in most cases, parents want to be good parents. You and I are educators, so we know that. They bring us their very, very best to schools, whether it's public schools, private schools. I don't think any parent gets up any day of the week and wants to be a bad parent.
Definitely.
And so it is so important for them to understand the impact that social media has on their kids from the interest and from the intellectual perspective. And we can get into more of that.
Exactly. And as well as just with the recent protests and things going on with the students, voicing their concerns and using their voice, going out protesting, doing walkouts, dealing with, the school shootings and voicing their concern about it. And what do you think about the actual teen voice? Do you think it's being heard more now with social media as opposed to before social media?
I think our teen voice is being heard more now. I always want to err on the side of the positive as we look at what's going on in our churches, what's going on in our schools, and even what's going on in community, small groups and what have you. I think that the voice is there. It is unfortunate that we have had the sacrificial problems that we've had in terms of the shootings and what have you. I think the teen voice is so very important. Think about where we were when we were teenagers and how we were trying to get our voices across. And those voices are nothing like what's going on now when you're talking about thousands and thousands of lives of children that are being taken out because you have a deranged person,
Yes.
be it male or female. I think the whole idea about mental health needs to be addressed
Definitely.
as we're looking at all of this. And the answer is not more guns. The answer, you and I and Sharon all
Right.
know,
I agree.
the answer is prayer.
Yes.
That's the only thing that moves a mountain is prayer. That's the only thing that calms the sea is prayer. The only thing that will change from a problem into a miracle is prayer. And so we lost that in public schools back in the day when the prayer was removed. But there's still some educators, I'm sure there are, that are out there praying like we're praying in and out of schools, and parents that are doing the same. So let's allow our kids' voices to be heard.
Yes.
Let's teach them how to
Mhm.
bring the voices forward and what to do with the power that you have. The spiritual knowledge, cognitive, and intellectual knowledge. That's our responsibility as we work with our students and our parents.
Definitely.
Wonderful. Thank you, Cherise.
Thank you.
Great questions.
Thank you.
And I want to just do a spoiler here. Dr. Cobbin is also featured in
Yes.
Cherise's book, A
Wow.
Guide to Social Media Era Parenting. I want to make sure that they know that when we drop that book next
yes.
week.
Yes, yes.
It's coming.
It's coming.
Yes,
That's right.
yes.
And I want to share my influence as you move your book forward, because we're supposed to be out here helping one another. So my friends are your friends now.
Thank you so much.
And I'll share whatever I need to do
That
on
means the most.
social media.
Yes.
We'll make it happen.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Cobbin, let's bring you back to your book. I understand that there is another bun in the oven, a book bun in the oven. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, there is a bond in the oven, and you know me well enough to know how fast I'm all over the place, so I need to slow down. Hopefully it won't be another car accident.
No, it will not. It will not.
It will not be that. Words are powerful. I know that he's going to allow me to spend more time writing it and making sure that it's what it needs to be. It will be a devotion. There are people in my lives that have said to me, you have a disciplined way that you approach life. From the very moment that you wake up, I hear what you say that you're doing, and then throughout the day, there's certain things that go on. So back in the day, Sharon, when we were coming out of little Baptist churches, there was a devotion before the service. And so we believe that there is a devotion before we step out to do our business for Him. And there's some specific scriptures, and because I'm a singer,
I know that there's some specific songs that must be raised up to him in the early morning. Because he said, seek him first early, and you'll find him. So I want to put that little devotional piece in place so that our students, our little kids will know what to do.
Yes.
Because many of them do not get in church.
Mhm.
Many, you can say that across this land, because the church may not be available to them, a local place for them to go, or they don't have transportation, or they don't have the parents who will take them, or the grandparents. So it's not necessarily their fault, but we have to be sure, back, as we've said before, put it on paper, document what it is we're needing for them to do and be, and then make it available for them. So the bond is in the oven.
Okay.
And my drop date is August, around my birthday.
Oh.
And I know it's gonna happen because you remain in my life. It's gonna happen.
Yes.
Yes.
I didn't know
I
it
can
was
feel it. I
August date.
understand
You
that.
feel
It's gonna happen.
it? So that's beautiful. So, Dr. Cobbin,
Yes.
one little last tidbit of advice for aspiring authors. And then, if you would please share your contact information.
Sure. Advice for aspiring authors. I'll go back to P. To birth a book, you've got to have perseverance. You can't start it and stop and not expect it to happen. So you've got to persevere through the process. Exaltation. If you give it to him, the book is for his glory, not for your finances. It will come to pass at the level in which it should be written. And then exaltation, giving him all the praise, honor, and glory when it's written, because it's not you, it is him. And I'm speaking of the books that are going to bless people, not necessarily you're trashing your husband because you were abused 4 years ago. I mean, that has a message within itself. But he doesn't get the glory for what your husband did to you. He gets the glory through what you've been through to get to him, and how you're living your life based on forgiveness of that husband.
Wow, that's
So-
powerful.
Yeah, it's persevering, exaltation, and expectation. So just, that's what I say to the authors.
Oh, I love it. So how can they contact you?
Social media.
Of course.
Social media, baby.
Ooh. Facebook.
Facebook, Instagram. I'm taking my website to the next level because God has moved me to the next level. And
Oh.
of course, the old-fashioned way, telephone. Call me on my hotline, which is my cell phone number, 832-715-6830.
Can
Wow.
we email you too?
Oh, yes, you can email it. That's right, baby. Thank you for that email. And make sure, let me say that to people, make sure that your email address is current and that it's not going to be dropped over time. I've gone through that experience too. So now I'm jcobbin2@gmail.com. jcobbin2@gmail.com. But Facebook, all the other areas out there, you can reach me. And if they can't find me, Sharon, they can find you.
Oh,
You're the
always.
master communicator.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
You are the connector. Yes,
indeed.
definitely.
Contact Sharon.
Contact Sharon.
Exactly.
Well, the beauty of having these two gracious ladies here today is simply this. I keep going back to Black Panther, and the girls showed up with girl power.
Yes, indeed.
I mean, they were true warriors.
Yes, they were.
And there was an uncommon strength. We all possess that strength,
Yes.
but do we access it and do we allow it to empower us
Yes,
to
yes,
fulfill our purpose?
Yes.
And then are we loyal to that commitment?
Yes.
See,
Yeah.
No matter what.
yes.
Yeah.
So I have an educator, author, entrepreneur who's
Yes, indeed.
totally committed
Yes, indeed.
to your purpose.
Yes, indeed.
And I have this entrepreneur, educator, author over here who is totally
100%.
committed to her
Definitely.
purpose. She
Yeah.
wrote this book because of those 4 sons, and she did not want children to have to worry about predators
Mhm.
in the classroom, outside of the classroom.
Yes.
So she's empowering parents
Yes.
to do what they need to do so that they can be more aware.
Yes.
Isn't that wonderful?
It is, it is, it is. Let me say one thing, when we talk about, I want to thank the guys for this station, for allowing us to be here as well, and realizing that this is going all across the world. But I have a commitment to my sisters and my brothers and my children in Kenya, Africa. We have an
Oh,
orphanage
yes, the
over there.
philanthropist side
That's
of
right,
you.
that's
Talk
right,
about
that's
it,
right,
Doc. Talk
right.
about it.
Member of Wednesday Village Church, co-pastor Beloshi Kibe, and a mission and a vision for an orphanage in Kenya. She served it well all the way up until death. Passed away, hasn't been 2 years yet. And my husband and I contribute to that ministry and to the orphanage for years. But I still have a commitment to that group of children. So we've gone from maybe about 10 children now to 29.
Wow.
The oldest young lady has just entered the university. There's a second girl graduating this year who will be entering the university, who is now striving to become a teacher.
Wow.
And on behalf of Beloshi Kibe, we are looking to partner with groups and bringing those girls to the United States. And we're going to honor the legacy
What a
of Pastor.
legacy.
That's right,
Yes.
Pastor Kibe. I was in a meeting just yesterday.
Oh,
And
wow.
these young ladies and kids I have not met, but I'm going to Africa, August of 2019. So I
Wow.
can meet my little group of people. My little group, and I call them my own because they are,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
And we have responsibilities to our children,
Yes.
no matter who we are.
Yes.
And we're sitting here all dressed up, looking a certain way, but we didn't start out this way.
No.
And when you invest in that intellectual capacity, the spiritual knowledge of children, can you imagine what 29 children are going to look like in that part of the world because of what we decide to do
Yes.
based on the purpose and the authority that God has given us. So yes, I send my money where my mouth is. A couple of months ago, they needed a cow. We got the money, we spent the money to get the cow. The next thing I knew from Daniel, we had 2 cows, and yesterday he told me we have 2 cows and some baby cows.
Oh,
So
wow.
we know we've got enough milk going on over there. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
I'm talking about kingdom purpose, et cetera, et cetera. We have
Yes.
to take our minds off of ourselves and put them out
Yes.
there for what people need for us to do.
Yes.
And God
Yes.
relishes the fact that these are children.
Yes.
He wants us to have a responsibility to our children as educators, no matter whether we meet them or not. So I'm just excited. Thank you guys for allowing us on your show and all that we want to do on behalf of our African American brothers and sisters all over the world.
Thank you,
Put a
Dr.
praise on that,
Cobbin.
baby.
Yes, I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. So I tell you, this has been fun. I have had lots of fun. And one of the beautiful things about everything that we do here on Author Central Station is that we bring you a variety of people, authors from different age groups, different demographics, but they all have a heart and a love for the written word.
Yes.
And we want to make sure that you know that. So if you want to be on Author
Send us
Central
an
Station,
email.
at info@afrovibesradio.com. Attention, Sharon.
Yeah.
And we'll make the hookup. It doesn't matter whether you're in the Philippines or whether you're in Nigeria. It doesn't matter. We will have you on the show and we will share your message with the world. So I just want to say thank you very much
Yes.
for tuning in, and I am thrilled beyond thrilled. We had these 2 beautiful ladies with us today.
Yeah.
But most three. Oh,
Three.
thank you. But but most importantly, we want to thank you for tuning in, and we will be back next week, same time, same place. AfroVibesRadio.com, Author Central Station, the master communicator here, Sharon C. Jenkins, and you know I love you, and there ain't nothing you can do about it. Bye bye.